Viswanathan, and I'm a charter member at TiE Silicon Valley, and have the distinct honor and pleasure of introducing Raj Jaswa for today's very first AMA series. What we're calling is Ask Me Anything AMA series. This is a series that's aimed at university students and also those in the university ecosystem, those who teach entrepreneurship. And the primary focus here is to take everything that TiE does to foster entrepreneurship worldwide and apply it to the university audience, again, on a global basis. So we really want to start young. We want to bring all of the network effects and all of the knowledge and the mentoring and also some of the investing that TiE is well known for worldwide, and apply to university students to help them get a leg up and to help them get a rapid start into this wonderful world of entrepreneurship. So with that said, Raj, of course, needs no lengthy introduction. He's well known to academics and also students around the world. He's been teaching entrepreneurship at the IITs in India as well as in the US. He's a past president of TiE, a charter member, and he has a string of successes to his credit as a serial entrepreneur. And so I'm sure you've had a look at his bio, so I won't go through that in much detail. But to sort of kick it off, I want to, Raj, ask you, you've been teaching entrepreneurship for the last 7 years. I think you mentioned you've taught over 2,000 students. I mean, that's a lot of students around the world from different countries, different cultures. And perhaps you can sort of lead off this evening by telling our students what it is that they really need to know about the world of entrepreneurship. What do they need to really get to if they're thinking about starting a company or a venture? And then we can take it from there.
Great. So I think we're a small enough group that, I think people can just unmute and ask questions rather than doing it on chat. It'll make it a lot more interactive. Okay. Yeah, so let's for everybody, feel free to ask questions. Just jump in and ask questions. Don't, wait for other people and wait for openings and so on. So just jump in. Let's make it as interactive as possible, as though we were not doing this online. I think let's just see if we can have a nice conversation. So basically, as Jay indicated, for 25 years, I was a serial entrepreneur here. I'd worked for 10 or 15 years in Silicon Valley at Intel and all the companies, and then became a serial entrepreneur for 25 years. And then got involved with TiE and mentoring and educating and networking and promoting entrepreneurship to Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. And that's when I saw that basically Silicon Valley is kind of blessed because everybody's neighbors are entrepreneurs, everybody's friends are entrepreneurs, so that it's almost by osmosis, entrepreneurship gets into your bloodstream. And as a consequence, we all saw that the age of entrepreneurship has become younger. And right now, if you are not an entrepreneur straight out of school, there's something wrong with you. So that's how it's gotten in Silicon Valley, and especially the East and West Coast. Entrepreneurship is just taken off, right? But if you go to I'm from Mumbai, IIT, etc., you see that entrepreneurship wasn't, especially about 6-7 years ago, something that was even considered by the students for a career straight out of school. For them, number one thing was either come to the US or abroad for studies, get a degree, and then get a job. Or get a job in the US and get an offshore posting, right? So that was how people were thinking about career planning, etc. And, the feeling that I had, and quite a few of us who have been serial entrepreneurs and have been seeing how entrepreneurship is changing in the US in particular, but also in some advanced societies like Israel, etc., and that entrepreneurship really needs to start much earlier. Don't wait for 10, 15 years before you. And the reason is that a few fundamental changes happened in the environment since I became an entrepreneur, which is that, all these technologies that required you to be a part of a big company to get exposure to computers and software and all that was in your palms. I mean, your smartphone was so powerful. Your Apple TV was so powerful. Your car, everything was getting smarter, more accessible, more programmable. IoT, everything became, and the biggest users of this cutting edge technology were the young. I mean, they just, absorbed it. So they are the ones who are now seeing the problems, right? So unless you see a problem, you can't solve it. And entrepreneurship is all about seeing problems, but solving it in such a way that it becomes a business. So the whole idea of entrepreneurship is to convert problems into opportunities that become businesses. So that's when Jay, 7 years ago, decided to go to IIT and start teaching at IIT. And initially, people came to the classes, and but they really did not grasp what they were walking into. They thought it was another academic course. And entrepreneurship is not academic. It's something that you do with your hands, right? Entrepreneurs work with their hands and work with their minds to solve real world problems, and which was kind of a shock for IIT students who are great at studying from textbooks and giving exams, but are completely clueless about how to make things that do things, right? So basically, it was a little bit of a shock for the students to realize that now they had to do something. And so now over 7 years, things have just changed dramatically, because the entrepreneurial success that young out of school entrepreneurs have gotten has been so explosive. For example, Ola, Flipkart, Big Basket, all of these companies started by students straight out of school are now exiting or going public, and they're getting billions of dollars of valuation. And some of these student entrepreneurs are the new billionaires of India, the richest people in India. And so this year, for example, at IIT Bombay, where my class normally used to be 50, 60 students, 482 students signed up to take my course. Wow. And from 60 students, in 1 year, it exploded to 482 students. And so we said, how are we going to handle 482 students in one class? And so we went ahead and decided that we at least better quadruple the class to 250. And we supplemented it with additional professors and teaching assistants and everything else. And now we are running an entrepreneurship class for 250 students online at IIT Bombay. And we'll probably repeat the same course again next semester because there's going to be another 300-400 students who want to take the course. So basically, entrepreneurship now is becoming mainstream, even at the IITs and other institutes in India. And then the question is, so that is kind of, a little bit of story as to how entrepreneurship is now becoming mainstream, even in places like India. And I'll share more with you as we go along as to what are the challenges that they face compared to what our entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley face. Jay, any other?
No, I think that's a really good segue, Raj. Before I sort of ask the next question, if I might please request those on the call to turn on the video, because then we'd like to see you, and also it's an opportunity to since we have an intimate gathering, for us to, I think, have a more interactive conversation. So if you wouldn't mind, please do turn on your videos, everybody. And then a question for you, Raj, is thank you for sort of tracing the broad outlines of what is entrepreneurship and how students are coming on. Maybe you could, and I think you ended your last sentence had something about challenge. And so perhaps if you could talk about, as a student at IIT or Stanford or anywhere, if you have a bright idea and you're thinking about sort of converting this idea into a solution, as you mentioned earlier, creating a company out of it, what might be some of the initial challenges or stumbling blocks that our students might face that they need to be at least aware of, and how might they sort of try to overcome them?
Yeah, so the first thing that students need to realize, or first-time entrepreneurs need to realize, is that entrepreneurship is a process. Okay, it's not something that is just luck. Luck plays a big role. I'm not denying that, but entrepreneurship is a process. And a lot of people said, "Can you really teach somebody to be an entrepreneur?" I mean, that used to be the common question that Jay and I and Mihir and others used to face all the time, which is, can you really teach entrepreneurship? And clearly at TiE, Silicon Valley, and now TiE Worldwide, and now education institutions like Stanford and others, have all realized that entrepreneurship is really a process and it can be taught. And where things sometimes seem like luck, like, suddenly a VC getting excited about your idea and giving you $1 million for some problem that you solved on a paper napkin, it probably still happens. But 99% of the time, writing a good business plan, understanding the customer need, having a MVP or a proof of concept done, validating the feature requirements, having an approach to scaling up or building the company or getting co-founders, all of that is a process. And that process is what ultimately, gets the majority of the company off the ground, right? So, and then the other important thing that I discovered is that 9 out of 10 successful entrepreneurs did not really get VC funding when they started. 9 out of 10, maybe 9.9 out of 10. So 1 in 100 really got venture capital funding before they succeeded, before they got going. And it really was all funding which was pulled together by all kinds of different means that really gets 99 out of 100 entrepreneurs started. And later on, the VC money or professional money can come in. So just because a VC does not get excited or doesn't write you the $1 million check, doesn't mean that, you stop wanting to be an entrepreneur. So 99 out of 100 entrepreneurs really don't get the VC money, and yet they become successful entrepreneurs, right? So that is one major kind of misunderstanding that entrepreneurs face has to be addressed. So that was one of the things that just because other people don't see the opportunity that you are seeing, are not willing to take the risk and write that $1 million check for you, doesn't mean that you have to give up your idea. Now, the question is, if you don't have that $1 million, obviously you're going to have to make do, and you're going to have to solve all the problems that you need to solve in order to get your MVP, or minimum viable product, or proof of concept done, or website done, etc., in a lot more creative way, right? So, and that's what entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs solve the problems that need to be solved one step at a time. They don't worry about all the 101 things that have to be done to build their company. They just tackle the problem that needs to be solved today, and they just solve it with whatever mechanism possible. So just to give you an idea from my history, when we started Opti, we were like 3 engineers and myself, marketing guy, in a semiconductor chip company, and we thought we had a nice breakthrough idea for chipsets. So we put together some concept PPTs and found 2 or 3 VCs, and we visited them and gave a pitch. And guess what? They were just not inclined to invest in us. And we said, oh my God, this is such a big opportunity, and how come these guys don't see it? And that was what we faced. And so after about 3-4 weeks of trying this, my 3 co-founders and myself, we said, no matter how hard we try, I don't think these VCs are going to believe us. So what do we want to do? Shall we just shut the company and walk away from our beautiful idea? And we said, we really believe in this idea. And since we really believe in it, let's figure out how we can go ahead and make this thing happen, make Opti happen, by just scrounging around. And so one person went to his mother-in-law and got $100,000 from her. I ended up getting $50,000 from my brother, and another person got another $100,000 by mortgaging his house, whatever. We put together a few $100,000 together just from the 4 of us, because we believed in this thing. And then we just started working. And, we had to design a chip, because we were a chipset company. To design a chip, we needed some CAD tools. How do you get a CAD tool if you only have a few $100,000 in the bank? And when we called the CAD company, they said, like Mentor Graphics, they said, you're going to need to buy a Mentor Graphics workstation for $50,000, and then the software will be another $200,000. That's all the money we had at the bank. And so we said, how are we going to design a chip if it takes $300,000 to even get a workstation to design the chip? So, an entrepreneur doesn't give up. So does anybody have an idea as to how we designed our first chip without CAD tools? And these chips had like 30,000 gates. Now they have 3 million gates, but that time we had 30,000 gates in our gate array. How do you think we designed our chips?
Certainly not on pencil and paper.
Any engineers there? CAD engineers, chip designers? How do you think we designed our chips?
Did you lease a workstation from someone else?
Nobody leases these workstations, unfortunately.
And there was no AWS back then.
There was no AWS back then. So, so how do you think we did it? How does an entrepreneur solve problems?
Well, I'm going to take a guess, Raj.
Okay, guess. Take your guess.
You had some good friends at Intel, and you tried to borrow some time in the night.
Now you are the makings of an entrepreneur. That's exactly what we did. I mean, Intel wouldn't be such a good idea to go to Intel, because they have security guards and other things. But, there were enough other friends that, we had who used to work in smaller companies that had that had these CAD workstations, and obviously they don't work night and day. They also had the ways to VPN from their homes, etc. And they would basically let us use their CAD software and computers at night when they were not working on weekends. And that's how we designed our first 3 chips, without spending a single dollar, guys. We did not spend a single dollar. We had access to the best workstations, the best software, and we got our chips designed, and the tape for masks generation, etc., all released by basically moonlighting. I suppose that's the right word, right? We moonlighted and used the computers of our friends and other companies to get the job done. The job had to be done, right? And so we got that done. And then so you can see that, that was just the start of our problems. When you don't have money and you're building a semiconductor company, then we went to NEC and said, okay, our chip is done. Can you make it for us? And they said, how much money do you have in the bank? How much, are you willing, are you, and so they would not give us any wafer capacity to make our chips. They're not going to give their wafer capacity to people who can't pay the bill, right? So basically, how did we solve that problem, guys?
Well, I see.
How do you get wafer capacity from vendors that don't trust you to pay the bill?
Well, can I go again, Raj?
Sure, Jay.
So perhaps what you did was you said, give me some capacity and I'll cut you in for a piece of my revenues.
Yeah, you could. That would be a good strategy. And we've done that strategy in the future. But the very first time, basically they just don't trust you enough, right? So what we did is we found that there was this Indian director of marketing at NEC, Roy Da Silva. And we told him that, look, Roy, we have designed a very good chipset. We know exactly how to design a chipset because we used to work at Intel and chips and this and that. And we have very good engineers. So our chip is going to be good. Now, can you convince NEC to do it? And he said, Raj, it has to go through accounting. It has to go through, we have to qualify you as a vendor. There's no way that, I can get it through. But he said, if on the last day of the month, you come to us with a bank draft and give us the chips and the tape to make the chips, we always have, a few hundred or few thousand wafers that we have not sold for the month. And the factory is very upset because marketing has not sold the wafers. And the factory is going to miss its number by 3% or 5% because they had no chips to make because the orders did not come in. And he said, there are always orders that, drop off or the salesman can't bring the order in or whatever, right? So he said that if on the last day you come and give us a prepaid bank draft for the chips that you want made, the factory will just take the order, forget accounting, forget credit checking, forget everything. They'll just take the order, get the chips made, and everybody's happy. Accounting is made because they made the numbers. The factory is happy because they made the chips, and everybody's happy. The general manager gets his bonus because he filled the factory. So everybody's going to be happy, and you'll get your chips. So on the last day, boom, we took our money that we had and we got the chips made. And that's how we got the chips made without having any credit, any Dun and Bradstreet reports, etc. So basically the message that I want to give is that, entrepreneurs solve problems, and these problems are not, big problems that, you'll study in an MBA school or something. These are day-to-day real life problems that are to be solved. How do you get somebody to take your money? How do you get somebody to, make chips for you? How do you get somebody to, and, we have to do the same thing for how do you test a product once it's done? How do you convince customers to buy your chips from a company that's unknown, right? To launch a product on a chipset that nobody knows whether you're going to be around to take the production orders, whether you have the money to take the production orders. So all of these are the problems that entrepreneurs face. And, as an entrepreneur, you're a problem solver. You try to understand the problem and then you solve it, right? So Anu has a question. Anu, go ahead.
Thanks, Raj. My question is, you were convinced that your idea was good and you went for it. But sometimes it so happens that there are people with bad ideas also, and I could be one of them. What happens if my idea is bad? What should be that Lakshman Resha? What should be that, that limit that I should push towards?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's like there's always a balance between persistence and being practical, right? So we have to balance, when do we need to push through the wall, and when should we back off, right? So that is something that, every entrepreneur, will face pretty much very often, so just be prepared to that you're going to face this problem. And the answer is not going to be a theoretical answer. The answer has to come from the situation that you're working with. As you're working with the situation, you'll say, okay, so how do I know that, this particular chip that I'm making is going to be something that people will buy and pay money for, right? So basically, I can't just sit in my office and figure it out, right? Okay, guys, how would I figure out whether people are going to buy my chip or not?
Talk to customers. See if somebody is willing to write a check before you fabricate.
Exactly. Who's going to buy your product? Obviously, the customer. Why will he buy your product? Because the product that the motherboard or the PC is going to make, other people are going to buy. Why would they buy the PC? Because it provides a better value, is cheaper or faster or more functionality or whatever it is. So basically, the answer has to come from the customer, right? And so basically, you have to go build up a relationship with the customer so that he will be frank with you and he'll tell you what you have to do in order to create a chip that he can use, right? I could not, unless Roy de Silva had told me what I needed to do to get NEC to make my chips. You think I could have figured it out? No way under the sun, right? So the only way you can solve the problem that you're facing as an entrepreneur is to go to the real world and get the answer from the real world, right? You have to go and actually talk to people and figure out, like, what will it take for them to buy your product? And they will tell you, okay, I need delivery by this date. I need a compatibility test done by this date. I need to have performance to be at this state. I should have samples by this date. I should have this kind of pricing. They'll tell you everything. But,
very stupid
you have a relationship with a customer where he will share with you what you need to do. That is the real challenge for an entrepreneur. The challenge is, does he believe in you, or does he want to tell you what you need to know before he buys your product? And that requires that, you build a trusting relationship with the customer. So without trust, no customer is going to tell you what he needs to be done. Without trust, Roy de Silva will not tell me what I need to do in order to, why would he tell me that, they always have 500-600 wafers lying around at the end of the month, right? Why would he tell me? Why would he tell me the process that I have to use in order to get my chips in, get my my masks in, right? So basically, you have to go to whoever has the answers and then have a good relationship and trusting relationship with that person or entity or company in order to get that answer.
So Raj,
that's a very good question.
And thank you, Anu, for the question. I think Ankit has another question.
Hey,
yes,
hi,
Ankit.
Raj, thanks for hosting. I'm Ankit. I run a startup out of Seattle, which basically is a platform for virtual entertainment events. My question to you is, how did you attract your first, the top talent, like the first few employees?
Such a important question. I mean, without the right people around you, you're not going to succeed, right? Because not only typically, if you're an engineer, you'll know other good engineers who will trust you and join you. But to create a successful startup or a company, you need a lot more than an engineer. You need a lawyer, you need an accountant, you need a marketing guy, you need a sales guy, you need a customer support guy, you need test engineers, you need all these people that you've never met, guys, that you don't know how to get them. So basically, we use two resources. And one resource was, of course, friends and the network. And the beautiful thing right now is because of social media and LinkedIn and Instagram and Snapchat and all of these social media, you can track them down. You can track down people who can help you, right? Who can join you, right? So at least you can get their names, contact, et cetera, et cetera. The other thing that we used was the fact that we are all a part of the TiE organization. TiE, believe it or not, turned out to be one of my most important resources for all three of my companies, for Opti, Selectica, Dyyno. Basically, I basically used all my contacts and connections and network and extended network of TiE to get access. For example, at Dyyno, I needed somebody to be my IT manager. How am I'm a marketing guy, I'm a sales guy, I'm a general manager type. I don't know, who's the right IT person. But Shankar Munyappa was IT manager at TiE Silicon Valley. I had seen kind of, the IT systems that he had done and the hands-on approach that he had. And I convinced him to, leave TiE to become my IT head, So you basically, have to get resources from obviously social media and all the connections you have, as much of your network as possible, and take advantage of organizations like TiE. These days, there are lots and lots of professional organizations because, the main problem that I've seen with social media is that you don't have physical connection with those people, right? The body language that you need to get to get people to trust you, especially when you're an entrepreneur, is not available. So become a part of, one or two bigger, professional organizations.
Yep.
And basically at TiE, we've got everybody. We've got marketing people, sales people, accountants, lawyers, everybody we've got. So, essentially, I tell everybody that to be successful as an entrepreneur, you better have a big Rolodex. You know what a Rolodex is on it, Ankit? Yeah, that was, it's antiquated now. But, in our Jamana, Rolodex was very important. So I remember on my desk, I used to have 4 or 5 Rolodexes, each with about 500 to 1,000 cards. So I had about 8 to 10,000 contacts in Rolodexes.
Yep.
In my startups, when I was running companies,
Cool.
because
Yeah.
so that is how there is no, what about using headhunters, right? I would say only 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 employees really come in through headhunters. And whoever comes in through a headhunter typically is overpriced and underqualified. and has got the wrong attitude in life, right? They're there just for the money. While as a startup, you need somebody who's as passionate or can be motivated to be as passionate as you are for your startup. So headhunters I have used, but boy, they are expensive as hell. You get the wrong person, they push the wrong person on you. And I don't know if there are any HR people on this thing, but
Yeah.
they also probably do a good job. But in general, I prefer to use my employees' networks and my connection with professional organizations and then basically your outside accountants, your outside law firms. They are great contacts because typically they have so many portfolio companies. There's a continuous interchange of people going on in all their portfolio companies. Right, Mihir, what do you think?
So true, Raj. In our firm, when we talk about headhunter, what you are doing is hunting head. So you are left with a dead person, right? So it's really the brain count that counts, right? It's not the people count, the body count, right? And that's typically the case. So Raj, you are right on the point that, it's the people with whom you can really culturally, in terms of not necessarily the background culture, but mindset about the business that you work with. And those are the people who believe in your mission, who believe in your vision, are the one you want on your team. And you are absolutely right. Headhunter is probably not right way at this stage. Maybe once you grow into a big company, then you have a specific use. So that's my experience too. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, but Mihir, you must be recommending so many people to different startups that you guys advise, right?
Absolutely, yes.
You do that all the time.
Absolutely,
that's
and
half
like
your
you said,
job.
It's the network, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because your network is across portfolio companies.
Correct.
And very often, like I've needed people in India, I've needed people, wherever. And Nishit Desai, which is a global law firm, is basically connected and has contacts that I would never have access to, right? So basically, you have to leverage all the contacts and network that you have. Okay, Ankit?
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? I think, let's see.
You can take your hand down now, Ankit. Yeah.
So we've got time. So are there any other questions for Raj or for any of us for that matter? So if you don't ask us a question, we'll turn around and ask you a question then.
Well, I think I'm sure I know one person who's got a question. Aubrey, wake up.
No, it's been a pleasure listening, Raj. I always listen when you speak.
Thanks.
So I think it's as entrepreneurs, I think one has to juggle many balls, right? So
Yep.
Hiring is one of them, raising funds is another one of them. Of course, the whole journey in terms of customer discovery and growth. Okay, and of all this, I think these are all building blocks, and I would see it as foundations that keeps growing as the startup grows. But which of these do you think is the most important that an entrepreneur needs to focus? I know it's a challenge. The entrepreneur needs to focus on everything. But what is the one thing you feel as a startup who has a vision to blitz scale must focus on with undivided attention, if there was such one thing?
Well, so everyone has. So typically, like, the companies that I've run, we've always had a founding team. Okay, so we've always had a minimum 3 to 4 people in the founding team, and with different skills and different competencies. And so basically, typically, for the CEO, his job is money. Okay, so as a CEO, it's his job. It's not the CFO, not the accountant's job. You can't afford a CFO at that time, at least for the first few years. You're just going to have accountants. So the CEO's job is seeing that there is always money. In fact, the message I would give is that the day I close a funding round, that's when I start planning and thinking about the next funding round. And, I don't wait and enjoy, even for 1 minute, the success of raising 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, whatever it is. It doesn't matter how much I raise. As soon as I finish raising money and the check has come in, has been wired into our account, the next morning I start worrying about, okay, what should I do how should I prepare for the next round? Who am I going to be my target? Who should I go after? What do I have to do? So the CEO's job is money, and why is it the CEO's job and not the financial guy's job? Because basically, they say the buck stops at the CEO's desk or the president's desk. That's exactly what happens, which is basically the people who are going to give you money really only trust the CEO. Because, everybody else can have an excuse as to why the company didn't hit its goals or did not succeed or whatever it is. Only the CEO can take full responsibility for that particular, for the commitments that are being made for the company, right? So the CEO is the one that has to worry about money, because ultimately the people that really will trust you with their money are going to be the CEO. And for the early customers also, it ends up being the CEO that has to make the commitment to the customer, and only with that commitment will the early customers sign up to use your product. So the CEO actually has to do that. For the other people, they have to deliver on what they are responsible for. So the person who's VP of engineering better deliver on the products. Just because the CEO is struggling to get money for the company doesn't mean that the VP of engineering can also start worrying about the money. Because if he starts worrying about the money and says, oh, where's the money going to come from? We're going to be running out of money. We are going to do this, going to happen, that's going to happen. If this VP of engineering starts thinking of that, guess what? He's not thinking about getting the job done, the engineering done. And so if the CEO gets the money and the VP of engineering has not finished the product in time or done the right stuff, engineer the product correctly, basically the company is going to fail again. So essentially, every person in the leadership position has to stay focused on what they are responsible for. The COO or the manufacturing guy better be focused on getting the product out there and not worry whether engineering is going to get the job done or the CEO is going to raise the money. So he has got to focus on getting the product out there. So the salesman has to worry about getting the VP of sales, has to worry about getting the PO and not worry about whether engineering is going to deliver the product, get the engineering done, feature set, manufacturing is going. So there is a network of trust that has to be there in the team so that, basically all the objectives of the organization are met. So, but, clearly for the CEO, it is money and getting early customers to commit. For the VP of engineering, getting the job done. For the manufacturing guy, getting the product delivery done in a quality way. So every person leading a different function has their number one priority. And if they start running around like chickens with their head cut off, that's what we would say when I was running a company, which is organizations where everybody is worrying about the other person's problems are like, it's an organization where everybody is running around like a chicken with their heads cut off, right? Saying that the sky is going to fall, right? So that is, how you get your organization going. Everybody takes the top priority, the thing that they are responsible for, and then delivers the best they can for that particular job, for their particular function.
Thank you, Raj.
Make sense, Aubrey?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anu had a question. I think he has his hand up.
Yeah, hi. So continuing on that, the topic of raising money. We are at the moment thinking that we need to finish our MVP, get some customers, and then raise the first round. So we have skipped the seed round. We have funded.
Sure. Yeah. That's a common thing for a lot of early first-time entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, like every time when somebody says that, I should be focusing on raising money, that scares me, because that's exactly not what I'm doing. I'm basically focused on getting customers right now, finishing the engineering the right way, while we are finishing our MVP. Am I like on the right track, or should I?
No, you're the CEO, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what did I say for CEO? Even though you're doing all those other things, your number one job is money, okay?
Yeah.
So even though, you're doing all these other things, you better be focusing on raising money. So what does that mean? Raising money means, having a game plan as to, it's like it's like sales. It's like filling a funnel. Who are you going to contact? Figuring out, how to make them a qualified investor, finding out if they are motivated, getting a personal relationship with them, and then, continuing to, take care of them till they finally invest when your MVP starts working and when you get your first customers, right? So basically, you are the one who has to be the salesman for getting the funding into the company. Okay, so you have to continuously focus on, knowing who are going to be likely investors in your company, figuring out how you're going to make contacts with them, figuring out how you're going to build a relationship with them, figuring out how you would be, figuring out whether they are the right ones for you to invest because they are early stage or late stage, or whether they are a semiconductor investor, or whether they are a global investor or a software investor, or whatever it is. So kind of characterizing whether they are right for investing in your company, right? So all that work, you can't say, I'm going to do it after the MVP starts working. That's too late.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do that work so that when the MVP starts working, you can basically send a message to the top 5 people saying, guess what, guys? I'm so excited. Our MVP started working and we have got our first PO. And they'll say, wow, that's good. I want to get involved with this company, right? So but you already found those 5 guys who are going to get that great news from you.
Mm-hmm.
If you finish off your MVP, you've got your first customer, and then you start looking around, oh, there are 1,000 potential VCs in the Bay Area or angels in the Bay Area. Which ones are right for you? And Mir, can he get money that way? You've seen a lot of fundraising.
No.
Right.
So,
So
Raj,
you better have your targets. Huh?
So no,
you gotta have your
Raj,
targets lined up.
Yes, I was just going to add to what Raj said, because a lot of studies have been conducted on the top reasons why startups fail. And if you look at the top 10 reasons why startups fail, literally every single time at the top of the list is they ran out of money.
That's because CEOs and founder CEOs are typically engineers or marketeers who are not connected with the financial world, right? So, but the same methodology that you do for selling to a customer is the same methodology for getting investors. The product that you're selling is a piece of your company, right? Yeah, the product you're selling is a piece of your company. So basically, as the CEO, Anu, you have to, even while you and your team are working on getting all the things lined up, concurrently, you are identifying and, kind of choosing from the funnel of potential investors who are the top, most likely people who are going to invest in your company because, you've been able to break through in terms of having a relationship with them. They are interested in your kind of product, so they've got complementary companies there, or all of that's good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you ever follow on, Anu? I thought he...
Yeah, actually, I was like a lot of things going on in my head right now, but
go ahead.
One of the like questions I would want to ask is, if I'm continuously like profusely raising money every time I'm giving away a piece of my company, right, sure, isn't it better for me to say, how can I increase revenue in line with my engineering demands? So it's like the revenue should fuel engineering and the engineering should fuel revenue, right? And so with that perspective, my thinking is like, I should not grow out of my pants. Like, just make sure that I'm growing my, do you see what I'm saying? So if I profusely start raising money, I may have money sitting in my bank, and the trouble is like, I have diluted my company at a much expensive rate than I could have. How do you get around that line of thought?
Yeah, so it's there's certain rules of thumb as to how much you should raise at each round. So basically, different people will give you different rules of thumb, but the one that I typically use was that, I would try to raise enough money in each round that'll carry me through for 18 to 24 months. Okay. And I'll try to raise the next round in 12 months, right? So I'll raise it in 12 months, but I've got enough money to hang in there for another, 6 to 12 months. And the reason is that, basically, you can try to control everything around you, but you can't control the macro environment, right? So, investors are driven by what's happening in the macro environment, inflation coming in, or they're not, or the mood or the stock market sours or goes through business cycles or this, that, or whatever, COVID hits, that's the ultimate, which really is a big disruptive thing that happens, right? So that happened. But so basically, that's how, I planned all my VC rounds, and it worked for me. And, but, if the environment changes where there's too little money or too much money, you've got to, again, tune up that the rule of thumb also. You can say, okay, I don't want to dilute it so much right now because there's plenty of money right now. And the VCs are telling me that, my current VCs are telling me, don't worry about the money. You focus on getting the job done. We got the money for you, etc. But don't trust these VCs because, they can change or turn on a dime. So they can change their minds because they're all, so they have to run their portfolios the way, or their funds the way they need to. So I would say that, always be conservative with money. Always never go in just because you receive 10 million bucks doesn't mean that, you start creating sales conferences and hosting them at Ritz-Carlton. Basically, watch every penny. And the reason is that, the investors, believe it or not, are watching you. Investors don't want the companies that they've funded to start living like aristocrats. They want them to be, really cheap. They want them to extract the maximum value for the money that they've given them, right? They want them to get the best product done, hire the right people, get the best deals, so they want you to extract maximum juice for their investment in you. They don't want you to be enjoying life. Yeah. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean that it's there for you to enjoy that money. That money is there to, get twice the value that other people can get from that same money. So that is something that a lot of entrepreneurs forget when they get a lot of VC money. They just start, wasting it or splurging it, and then they get over diluted. Then they get, they basically miss them milestones. Mihir, you've seen a lot of this kind of stuff. By the way, Mihir is a lawyer in Silicon Valley, represents Nishit Desai from India, and he's got dozens, if not tens of dozens of portfolio companies that he's seen. So I'd like to run it by him.
No, thank you, Raj. That's very kind of you. I basically work with a law firm and we help companies from early stage startup all the way to those who are going IPO. We have even done SPAC thing also. But so always, as Raj said, you have to keep eye on the ball. And for CEO, the ball is really the finance, the fund, because everybody else can only focus on their own work if they have the money, which is greasing the wheel, right? And that grease has to come from CEO. So CEO, everything else is great, Anu, but I think the money has to be there in the bank. If the money is gone, people will start panic. What about my salary? What about my future? And there are people who are looking for good people always out there. So you spend so much time, energy building up your team, and for some silly reason, because you think it is possible, but they think it's not possible for you to continue to run, they would look for another opportunity. So that's a very important thing. And money is not going to fall on your lap just like that. And then earlier, if you recall, Raj said that most companies don't get VC funding, right? That is also very important because with VC, you get the money, but there is a clock ticking also you have to keep in mind, because they have that cycle of return and they're looking for exit and all of that, because they are putting somebody else's money, actually, not their own money, right? So that is also you need to keep in mind that once you get the VC money, there'll be huge pressure on you to raise the valuation of your company, which means even getting more money, right? So those are the things definitely important, but keep your eye on the ball. Basically make sure that you are ahead of the curve in terms of your burn rate, ahead of the curve in terms of your growth strategy and the funds required for the growth strategy. So Raj, you are so experienced and so knowledgeable. It's just such a pleasure to hear you, talk about all these things.
That's great.
Right.
Hey,
thank you, Mihir.
So we have a couple of folks have left. Are there any questions? I mean, we can, Raj, if you don't mind staying for a few minutes.
Yeah, I can stay if there are any questions. Yes.
Yeah, if there are any questions
happy to,
for
happy
Raj,
to.
we're happy to stay.
I have one if I can.
Sure.
Raj, thank you so much. This is just a wealth of fresh information, sharp and focused, and helping me so much. So here is another question, and Anu, I'm sure this is applicable to the question that you raised earlier. How does a founder maintain? You see, before fundraise, frugal living is something that is absolutely, something that is common in the founder's life and the startup team's life. How does the founder continue? And I think that's very important. How does a founder continue to maintain that culture of frugality, especially when the team realizes and the team doesn't understand the hardship and the labor that goes into fundraising? Could you give us tips on how to bring about a culture of frugality even as the CEO continues to do his job, her job of getting the funds while blitzscaling and going towards IPO? How do you maintain that culture?
Yeah, so very, very important question, right? And this is something that, believe it or not, your employees just won't understand unless you explain it to them over and over again. That's the job of the CEO, to explain, how to get the maximum value from the funds that are there in the company. So the message that, I would give my salespeople, because they are the worst culprits, is, I want you to get the best wine for the customers, but you will not even finish sipping the first glass. So basically the message is that it's good and it's important to spend money where, it needs to be spent, which is to get customers, wanting to do business with you, making customers feel that, you are confident about your money situation. Nobody wants to do business with somebody who's going broke, okay? So that is the worst impression you want to give, that you're going broke, right? So you want to give the impression that you are comfortably set, you know exactly how you're going to make all your finances, that your finances are working out great, and you've got lots of people wanting to throw money at you. You have to cultivate that image. It's an image cultivation thing. So with people that matter, customers, partners, investor, VCs, etc. You tell a VC that you're running out of money, they will be running from you. Don't expect them to give you a penny if they think that you're running out of money. VCs invest only in companies that have too much money. So you have to give the impression that you are very well taken care of. You couldn't care two hoots about their money, but if they really want to get involved with you because they will provide you that, you want to make a bigger pie and you've got to do all of this stuff, yes, you'll take their money, right? So that is, so basically the message that you as a CEO, you have to communicate is that, look, we will spend money to, achieve the objectives of what we have in terms of whether it's a sales meeting or whether it's a VC thing or a partnership thing or at a conference or at a trade show. You're going to have the best pizzazz, best everything, and throw the best parties and everything there. But the point is that on yourself, you'll be as frugal as hell. You're going to, go economy class. You are going to, if instead of flying, if there are 5 of you going to a trade show in Vegas, you will rent a SUV or borrow an SUV and drive it so that you can save on airfare for 5 people. You are going to share a room with 5 people or 4 people or 3 people or whatever it is, rather than, but you're not going to compromise on having the best booth or the best, party for your company. On the other hand, you're sharing the room. You're basically sharing you're coming by SUV to the trade show. You're basically carrying and lugging all the equipment onto the floor, etc., rather than using, kind of the super expensive trade show, unionized workers, So basically, the message is you spend the money to achieve the goals, but, you don't spend it on enjoying life. You're there money is something that has to work for you to achieve your corporate goals, right? And the goal right now is to get more customers, get more funding, get more branding, get more whatever it is, right? So that is, but that is not something that, people understand very easily. Like salespeople, I remember once I took, my sales team out for dinner to Pedro's. Mihir and Jay, you know Pedro's here, right? So I took them out for, after a conference or whatever, I took them out for this thing. And what I saw was that, all my salespeople ordered twice the amount of food that they could ever consume. And, they ordered steaks that were 3 times as large as what they could fit in their stomach. And what I saw was that every one of those salespeople, ate like 5% of that steak and had the remaining one packed up for their home, right? So it's like $40 steak. And so basically, I said, these guys, don't understand that, it's the same pot of money that is going to help Selectica become successful. And instead of, basically using that pot of money to get more customers and things like that, they were spending it on themselves. And so I had to actually bring the whole sales team together the next day and, just lay it on them. Just lay it on them that, this is the wrong behavior. And, you guys will never get promoted to, district sales manager or director of sales or VP of sales. If I see this behavior again, this is it. You are going to be fired at the first opportunity if I don't see that behavior and understanding of what money is for changed. Because if they don't understand what the purpose of money is, basically the wrong attitude happens in the whole company. And, before you know it, it's going to be a company that's going to fail, basically.
Thank you, Raj. This is so very pertinent. And so the CEO's role is also to set the standard and the culture.
The culture, very.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very important. If the CEO doesn't understand that he's setting the culture by his own behavior and corrective actions, that he's got to force on these people who are like 40-year-old people who don't know what it means to have the right. What do you think, Mihir and Jay? You guys have seen this all.
No, I mean, spot on, Raj. You got to set the culture early and you got to explain it to them often.
Yeah, exactly. If you
also
don't
lead by example, right, Raj? If you are doing that, they see you doing that, you driving a old, van or whatever, oftentimes people get the hint that this is how how we think about money. So you're right. If CEO is taking first class everywhere, then it's kind of hard for them to tell their head of sales to not do the first class.
No, they will spend money faster than you can even think of how to spend it. Right?
But you're right. You have to lead by example.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And but be clear in your thinking as to why you're doing what you're doing. Right? It's not like we are being harsh. We do want their wives to also enjoy a piece of steak, right? We want their kids to enjoy a piece of steak, right? So, but that is not why the company is taking them out for dinner. Because at that dinner, I wanted to actually discuss how they could all become more productive as salespeople, not worrying about how they're going to feed their kids steak, wrong mindset, it's like wrong mindset, guys. So this is the CEO's job. And if the CEO doesn't do it, guess what? Nobody else in the company will do it. If the CEO is not a SOB, but it's not really SOB, it's actually doing the right thing. You agree, Mir? It's the right thing that the CEO has to do. And it means that sometimes you're a tough school teacher. You're a school teacher teaching, because a lot of people have no values. They don't understand business the way you understand it. And you have to, and I can tell you that almost every company that I was, after a few years, basically, we had people who got it, right? They understood what it meant, how to run a company successfully. And all of them ended up becoming entrepreneurs and CEOs and started their own companies. And, AGK, he was working with me at Opti, Mihir, who's right now the president of TiE. So he worked with me for about 5 years. So all of these guys have become so successful because now it's in their DNA. They know how to create the right culture in their organizations, and put it in place. And so the CEO's job is not an easy job, but it's actually a very interesting job that the CEO has, because he has to be a tough schoolmaster 1 minute, he's got to be a cheerleader the other minute, he's got to be a salesman the next minute, he's got to be all these different roles he plays, or she plays. Yeah.
Thank you, Raj. Anu, you had a question? I thought I saw the hand go up.
I have too many questions at the moment.
Too many questions.
Maybe I'll pick one.
Okay.
What is the right time for me to start recruiting a CFO, since we are talking finances?
Yeah. So what I would say is there are a few jobs that you should hold off hiring.
Okay.
And sales VP is one. VP of marketing is the next one. CFO is the next one. So these are all jobs that are pure overhead.
What do you mean by that? Like, aren't they supposed to drive vision and like?
Guess what? They're overhead because the CEO can do all those jobs. So if the CEO can do it in his spare time, it's an overhead, right? So basically, as a CEO, all the jobs that can basically be done by basically applying logic or basically by learning from other people or making, your current organization, somehow the others do the job that the CFO has to do. If you can get all of that done, then you have saved money by pushing out the CFO hire by 6 months or a year. You've saved that much money by pushing out the VP of marketing hire by a year or so. So my recommendation is that, try to work with functional people that you cannot do without, right? Accountant, you can't do without. Somebody has to file the accounting. HR has to be done. Testing has to be done. All the functional jobs you as a CEO don't want to be doing. Mm-hmm. All the mental jobs, which is what the wisdom that the CFO brings, the marketing guy brings, the sales guy brings, all those jobs, if you can step in or one of your co-founders can step in and take that responsibility, great. You can push it out by a few months, few quarters, few years, a year or two. So I basically did with the accountant for at least 2 to 3 or even, 3 years at least. I just lived with an accountant rather than a CFO. And it's only when, I was ready to start transitioning the company to an acquisition or a IPO that I brought in a CFO, right? Chief Financial Officer. Same thing with, VP of sales. I kept them at director level or regional sales manager level or district sales manager level for as long as possible. And I was CEO, VP of marketing, and VP of sales for the longest time, and then slowly, as it became necessary, I would finally hire. But, it's good to push them out because it's so important that you hire the right person. And it's so, you hire the wrong VP of sales, you hire the wrong VP of marketing, you hire the wrong VP of, wrong CFO, boy, they can take all your good work and just sink it, So hiring the right people is hard for you to know till, you've yourself done that job for some time, that what's really needed for getting for the right person, the skills that the right person should have.
I know that I'm an excellent engineer. I'll tweak my horn for a minute. But how do I become an excellent VP of marketing, excellent CFO?
So you will never be an excellent VP of marketing. You'll never be an excellent VP of sales. You'll never be an excellent CFO. But you can be an average VP of marketing, average sales guy, and average CFO. You can always do that. Okay. And as with your team, you can probably make decisions of a good quality in each of these areas by just using logic and being average. Because, if a CFO is hired and he's got nothing to do, because there's not that much work to be done,
right?
He's going to cause a lot of headaches, especially the sales guy and the marketing guy. Because if a marketing guy, doesn't have a budget to spend, he's going to figure out how to make your life hell as CEO. Because he'll keep on saying that, I can't make this company successful if you don't give me the money. And you're saying, I'm first going to get the MVP done before we can start spending the money. And so hiring people before that time is sometimes the biggest mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make.
It's great. Hey, thank you so much. And I appreciate you're taking the time, Raj, to spend more time with us. I know all of us that have been here, Aubrey, Shivani, Anu, you've stayed on. Thank you so much for joining. And what I would say is, we're starting this every couple of weeks. We'll have an AMA Ask Me Anything session. We all have your details. So Vishali will be reaching out to you and making sure that you're included in those mailings. Feel free to join any of those sessions that catches your interest. And if you have any specific questions, you can probably route them through Vishali and we can follow up with you. So I really want to thank Raj, Mihir for your participation and all of you for joining today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vrishali. And any last minute housekeeping items you want to talk about?
No, everything's good. We have a blockchain and AI summit coming up. So if you're interested, I will be happy to share the details with you. Do join. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Welcome, guys. I think this Ask Me Any Question is a very good, it's a very good thing that I think our entrepreneurs worldwide will really benefit from because, you're going to learn so much from all the different successful entrepreneurs and the lessons that they are going to communicate you, right? So every entrepreneur will have to chart his own path for sure. But, if you can avoid a few mistakes by listening and asking questions, awesome.
Yep. Thank you so much, Raj.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Bye-bye.